I thought I was joking until my husband finally walked away.
I used to think humor was my strength. I was that person who could turn anything into a joke, even the most uncomfortable moments. I really believed laughter made things lighter, easier to get through. What I didn't get, though, was the line between laughing with someone and laughing at them. My husband, Daniel, was the complete opposite. He was never loud or the center of attention. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who listened way more than he spoke. When we first met, I found that so calming. He made me feel grounded, completely safe. I mistook that gentleness for weakness, and that one mistake ended up costing me my marriage. Daniel carried insecurities he rarely ever talked about. He was bullied when he was younger, teased for how he looked, for being shy, for the way he avoided confrontation. By the time I met him, he had built this life that looked so stable on the outside. But on the inside, all those old wounds were still there, and I knew about them. He trusted me with them. And somehow, I still use them as material for my jokes. At first, it all seemed harmless. I'd tease him about being awkward in social situations, about how much he hated public speaking, about how long it took him to build confidence in his career. He would smile politely, sometimes even laugh along, and I took that as permission. I told myself if he's laughing, it can't be hurting him that much. But laughter can be a shield. Slowly, the jokes got more frequent. I'd make comments in front of our friends, little jabs disguised as humor. People would laugh, and I felt clever, entertaining. I never noticed how Daniel's smile stopped reaching his eyes, how he got quieter after those moments. Or maybe I did notice, and I just chose to ignore it. Whenever he tried to tell me that my words were bothering him, I just brushed it off. I'd say he was being too sensitive, that I was just kidding, that couples should be able to joke about anything. I convinced myself that love meant tolerance, not boundaries. I was so wrong. The turning point wasn't some dramatic, explosive argument. It was a slow erosion. Daniel just stopped sharing his thoughts with me. He stopped opening up about his worries. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd say nothing or that he was just tired. I didn't push it. I was too busy believing everything was fine. One night, we were at a small get-together with friends. Someone brought up old school memories, and I made a joke about how Daniel used to be shy and overlooked. I exaggerated it to get laughs, adding details that weren't even true. The whole room laughed. I felt that familiar rush. Daniel didn't say a single word. On the drive home, the silence was so heavy. When I finally tried to talk, he asked me one simple question. "Why do you enjoy making me feel small?" I didn't know how to answer. I laughed nervously and said he was overthinking it. That was the exact moment something in him shut down completely. Over the next few days, he withdrew in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. He stopped starting conversations, stopped helping around the house, stopped touching me altogether. It felt like living with a complete stranger. I told myself he was being dramatic, that he'd get over it. Then one evening, I came home and found his closet half empty. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse me of anything. He just told me calmly that he needed space. He said he had spent years trying to build his confidence, only to feel like the one person who was supposed to protect him was the one tearing him down instead. I panicked. I apologized. I promised I'd change. I told him I hadn't meant any of it, that I loved him. But my words sounded hollow, even to me. He left anyway. The days after he moved out were unbearable. The house felt too quiet, too big. I replayed our conversations over and over, trying to pinpoint where it all went wrong. I kept telling myself he was overreacting, that marriages don't end over a few jokes. But deep down, I knew the truth. It wasn't about the jokes. It was about respect. When Daniel finally agreed to talk again, it was over a video call. He looked different. Lighter somehow, even though there was sadness in his eyes. He told me he had been unhappy for a long time, that my words had chipped away at his self-worth until he didn't even recognize himself anymore. "I started believing the things you said," he admitted, "and that scared me." That one sentence broke me. He told me he was done, that he couldn't stay with someone who made him feel inadequate, even if it was unintentional. He said he needed to choose himself, something he had never been good at doing before. I begged. I cried. I promised therapy, change, anything he wanted. But he had already made peace with his decision. The divorce process was slow and painful. Sitting across from him in a lawyer's office, dividing our entire life into paperwork, felt surreal. The man who once looked at me with so much warmth now treated me with a polite distance. Not hatred, not anger. Just acceptance, and that hurt more than rage ever could. After everything was finalized, I moved back in with my parents. The nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake thinking about all the times Daniel had tried to communicate his pain and how easily I had dismissed it. I realized that your intention doesn't erase the impact. Loving someone doesn't give you a free pass to hurt them. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Daniel was doing well. He had started therapy, made new friends, and seemed more confident than he had ever been. Hearing that filled me with this strange mix of pride and grief. I had been part of his pain, but in a weird way, I was also part of his awakening. I don't tell this story to paint myself as a villain or to get sympathy. I'm telling it because emotional harm is often invisible. It hides behind laughter, sarcasm, and the excuse of just jokes, but words matter. Repeated disrespect, even when it's wrapped in humor, can quietly destroy someone. I learned too late that love isn't about being clever or funny at someone else's expense. It's about creating safety. It's about choosing kindness, even when it's less entertaining. Daniel taught me that lesson by walking away, and that is something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Thanks for listening. If you connected with this story, please consider subscribing for more.